This order to meeting at 17:35. I would like to thank the bond committee for being here this evening for a work session. I know that this was not a planned evening for your normal work sessions. And I know that there's some new information in front of you that you guys are probably likely trying to digest right now, which is a lot of what these conversations are going to be tonight. Thank you to CB Construction and Scott and Straight Line for being here. We appreciate it. We're going to have questions and we appreciate being able to ask them and get some information from you guys this evening. I do want to just address that these are going to be some emotionally driven conversations this evening. And we know that there's changes. We know that that can be frustrating at times. We're really looking to the bond committee to help us understand what the community factors are that we can consider as we go into open session this evening. And knowing that there might need to be discussion, it's okay if we need to take a recess to take a deep breath. I'm just going to ask that everything stay respectful, keep our tone mild, and move forward as a group, because I think we have some resetting to do on foundational knowledge in general this evening. And so with that, again, thank you everybody for being here, and I'm going to hand it over to Mr. Gallagher to kind of go through the agenda and introduce our guests.
Thank you, Madam Chair. A couple of things I want you to be aware of tonight. We have Derek from CB Construction here in person. We also have Andy from CB Construction, who's the project manager. So welcome, gentlemen. And also on the screen, we have Scott Marshall, who's our architect for the project. And we'll be referring to Scott a lot tonight as we kind of take you through a number of documents. So hi, Scott. So a couple of things I want you to pay attention to in front of you. You should have a document from Scott Marshall, our architect, dated April 12th. Find the one that says April 12th. That is the document that we worked with Straight Line Architects right after I first arrived, because keep in mind, the list that was sold to the voters was very long, and we had to shorten it considerably to match the budget. So this is the document that the Bond Oversight Committee approved, as well as the board approved at that time, according to the estimates that we had on this document. And it also kind of shows the priorities. You know, it shows the priorities in the middle section, and then the alternative, you know, if we found additional dollars, what, you know, some things we could reach to in the bottom. So that's what CB Construction and Straight Line Architects have been moving on. Now, the problem is the estimates that were done, you know, just in April, the bids came in very high. And I'll kind of take you through some of those figures here in just a second as we look at my update. And so because they're coming in so high, we're going to have to reprioritize this list, think about how we can tighten the list even more. We're going to have to think about, gee, what do we want to preserve the best we can? What can we do? What are our options? And so the board chair and vice chair and people have been asking me, Sean, what are our options? So we're going to go through a lot of that information tonight in terms of what those options are. But I think no matter what happens, we need to come to a consensual agreement here that the board can approve in their formal meeting after this, that they'll give me specific direction. So CB Construction and Straight Line Architects have their guidance, because we are on the eve of getting subcontractors and making things happen. And we don't want to be putting money over here when, oops, we should have been putting it over here. We don't want that to happen, because the money is too tight, it's too valuable, and we need to make sure that we have a real solid product for our community in our district. I also want to remind people that I'm your superintendent for now, but really it's the community's project. You know, you guys are the ones to live with this project for many, many years to come. So that's why it's important that this is a group effort and this is a group decision. I work for the board. I'm not a member of this community per se, because I'm only here for a short period of time. But I want to make sure that while I'm here, we produce the best possible solution for this community. Because as we know, our school buildings are very valuable and they last many, many years. So go ahead and pay attention to this document. It's a memo from, I guess I didn't put it on memo. It's on letterhead from the district. And it's entitled ALSI Bond Project Update 8/1/2022. Let me kind of walk you through this so you can kind of see where we're at. So I just referred to that April 12th reprioritized project list from Scott. And then I've started to outline the problem. The bids are coming in much higher than expected, squeezing available bond and district dollars. Here's just a couple of examples. If you look at the April 12th document, the panel and hallway estimate was $298,000 at that time, and it came in at $675,000. That's about $820 a square foot for a hallway. I was wondering where the gold fixtures were, but it's like, whoa, okay. The Voc Center, we were estimating 1.5, bids came in about just under 2 million. Okay, understand that. But you know what? We have a lot of increases in supply costs, fuel costs, and securing supplies. You know, what used to take 6 to 8 weeks is now slated for 6 to 8 months and even longer than that. So it's a very interesting economy. So in a way, I'm not surprised, but yet I am surprised. But those sorts of things squeeze these valuable dollars we already have, and it shortens our list even more, especially as we move forward with this. We still are having difficulties trying to find subcontractors, and CV Construction is here to attest to that. Since I've been here, I can speak vouch for these guys. They've really been busting their derrieres to try and find us some subcontractors, and I can tell you that personally. Building permits, we've been working hard on those. They've passed all entities of Benton County except for one, and that's the Benton County Public Works. And that has to do with the remnants of a handicap safety crosswalk project for the preschool. So the board is going to be approving that contract tonight that I've been negotiating with Benton County Public Works, and we'll get that notarized and signed to their office tomorrow. We're splitting the work. They're doing some of the work and we're doing some of the work because we want to make sure this goes quickly so they can issue our final building permits for this project. So options, that's always come up as a question. Options. First option I have there in bold says reduce the scope again of the project by prioritizing what the bond can afford. Okay, we'll talk more about that here in a second. One of the options that I was asked for research was, hey, what if we just cancel the project and send the money back to the voters? Well, there's a little more complexity to that than what it would appear. It would constitute what is called legal defense. And if I'm mispronouncing that, I apologize. But we have to keep in mind the bond has already been sold to investors. So once the voters approved the bond was sold. Investors are investing in this bond saying, you know, I'm expecting by contract the return of my dollars over a certain period of time, you know, and I think there was a variety of bonds that were sold under this umbrella, and we have to keep that in mind that there's a third party involved here. So if we were to do just that of canceling the project, the district is still on the hook for a return of investment over the life of the bond sold. We have a contract with these investors. So the way we would have to meet that contractual obligation we'd have to create an escrow account. And the district would have to cover the bond investment interest by either contributing district dollars or approving a new tax levy to cover the costs. Okay, think through that. And according to DA Davidson, there are financial audit attorneys. I reached out to them. I said, okay, what would that look like? What would that, give me some dollar values. And so in italicized, I put what they said in the email. This is exactly their word for word. They said, given the low interest rate of the bonds, i.e. 3%, and the now elevated rate of investment in treasury bonds, 2.6%, which doesn't mean a whole lot to me. The cost of defeasing the district's GO bonds maturing 2023 to 2030 and prepaying the 2031 to 2045 bonds on 6/15/2030 would be about $2,157,040. This cost would not include legal and verification costs of executing the defense. So that kind of gives us a price tag in terms of we'd either have to come up with that in the escrow fund over the course of 10 years, or we'd have to reach out to the voters for another tax levy to cover that expense. So another question that was posed to me, and Scott can answer this more definitively than I can. I'm not an architect. I'm not a structural engineer. What about constructing a metal pole building for the Voc Center? Okay, I understand that. And according to Scott, Scott's been down this road before. Public school buildings have to be constructed with some of the highest safety ratings according to building standards. And I gave an internet link there. If somebody really wants some interesting reading, well, I wouldn't consider interesting, but if they really want to read on those requirements, you can go to that link. Other safety standards there are referenced. And the final bullet point under those on the back side is, once a pole building is built in accordance with the above safety standards, the cost is about the same with lesser of a product. So, you know, once I heard that from Scott, I went, oh, okay, maybe that's not such a good idea. Also, you know, to save money, what about, I've had people ask, what about the district acquiring their old contractors? And we could, you know, but then the district would have to initiate their own RFP process and take over managing the project. Then I got to say, the district, we're in the business of educating students, not negotiating the contractor build world. But, and I'm not sure how much that would save. Don't have the figures on that. So there's some options there. The budget, we have a total of 4.3 million, both bond and awesome state matching grant dollars. We've spent a little over 368,000 already as of 4/12. I don't know what we spent between now and 4/12. Board approved 474,000 unappropriated dollars to be dedicated to bond project. So that's additional income. And ESSER $3 can provide 163,000 to air quality enhancement. In other words, like our HVAC project. So those are two pluses that we can be adding back to the bond project. Now, I've been asked a lot about budget timeline. The state matching awesome grant dollars, and this comes from Michael Wiltfong, head of the state finance division of ODE. It must be 100% spent by March 2024, else the district loses those dollars. So those have to be spent by then. The bond levy dollars must be 85% spent by April 2024 unless there are special circumstances. An extension is not guaranteed. So I asked, what are special circumstances? And they said, well, if you're having troubles getting contractors. I said, check. Or you can't get supplies. I said, check. You know, they list 4 or 5 things. And I said, check, check, check on every one of them. And so would we have a good case to extend that due date? I think we would, but it's not guaranteed. We have to keep that in mind. I think, you know, one impression that Michael Wiltfong gave me, he said they're going to look at what was your intent to spend those dollars. We can share one. What was your intent? You know, if the project just sat there and nobody did anything and they apply for an extension, I think they would look at that. Well, they're not that serious about it. But if, you know, if we can prove that we've been doing our due diligence, I think we would have a good opportunity to extend those dollars. But still, you know, those are due dates that we have to be looking at. I also have a question poised to our financial people about, gee, could we spend the awesome dollars before we spent the grant or the bond dollars? Good question. I don't know the answer yet. I have not heard back. So what I am recommending, and this is just my recommendation, again, this is the community's project. I'm not the one in charge here. I'm just helping out the best I can to facilitate an excellent solution. The district, my recommendation is the district needs to reprioritize the 412 list. We just need to, as recommended by Scott Marshall and approved by the BOC and the board of directors. This needs to be a joint team decision by the BOC and board of directors members and then approved by the board of directors. We're gonna have to make difficult decisions. You know, I know there's a lot of vested interest, a lot of emotional interest. I know that, I understand it. I feel it. And I even feel it myself, you know, and I don't live here in LC. I want to do the best I can for everyone. Sacrifices must be carefully weighed. We have to be thinking about these things. Gee, what if we cut this? What would that look like? How would that, you know, I know we all have dreams and desires with this project. What would that look like? What would that look like for teachers, for students, for the community? Keep in mind the district is under a timeline. And again, both Scott Marshall and CB Construction need detailed directions on how to proceed. We're really on the eve of moving dirt, materials, and crews. Isn't that right, Andy? Yep, it's penciled in. So without a clear direction, the district risks unnecessary costs and work being performed. We don't want to do that. These dollars are too valuable. So the other document which Scott, I'm going to kind of defer to you. Scott submitted this to us for review tonight. It's called the Alsea District Bond Process Review. He's got a lot of information. I think he's going to kind of take us through, and I think then we'll be turned back to the board chair, and then that's when you'll facilitate the rest of the meeting in terms of discussion, ideas, and thoughts, and questions, and that's what everybody's here for. So Scott, I'm going to let you take them through this. You okay?
Yeah, great. Sounds good.
Okay.
I put this together because I wanted to just kind of, I don't want to say like circle the wagons back, but we have.
Scott, can you hold on 1 second? Can we turn that up at all?
How's that? Is that better?
Julie. Keep going.
Testing, 1, 2, 3, testing.
Yeah, keep going.
Poor Ron's gonna have his ears blown out.
Yeah. Ron, can you hear?
How about now, Scott?
How do I sound now?
Much better, thank you.
Much better.
I can't, it's muffled to me, so.
Is it muffled?
We can repeat questions or information too. Go ahead, sorry, thank you.
That's cool.
So I put this together just to kind of circle the wagons back around. I wanted to, we have some new board members, and then we also have the bond committee. And I don't know if this initial information was shared with you guys, but I just wanted to put at the very top there, and I'm not going to go through it, but I just wanted to provide the information that I provided when we were initially hired to do the TAP reports, and then also hired them as the project architect. So just wanted to put that information in there. Again, like I said, I don't know if this information was shared, but just want you guys to have that, just kind of so we're all on the same page. Underneath the bond history, again, this is just kind of as a review. I wanted to go through the timeline and just kind of show, we started this whole thing back in May of 2018. And so, it's been about 4 years since we started. We did the long range facility assessment reports, which was necessary for the Awesome grant. In December of 2019, we finished the study. January through April, we went through the bond scope approach and kind of went through what we thought the projects would be. Some people on the bond committee right now were actually sat in those, so they'll remember those. And then going forward to 2021, in February, we selected CB Construction. In March, we got the topographical survey done. In April, we did the geotech report. In August of that year, we started the toilet project. I completed it in November. And then kind of fast forwarding to 2022, January, we got the power grade plans done for CPI coordination. February, we got the temporary office building permit dialed in. That's the relocatable unit you guys ordered. March, got the hallway and panel room design done. March, we did the classroom design because at that time that was prioritized, but since then it has been unprioritized. April, we got the VOC building done. In July, just last month, I picked up the ball and did the intersection improvement plans that the county wanted to have done in order to move forward with that work. So that's kind of where we're at. That's in a nutshell, that's where we started, and that's where we're at now. What I wanted to talk about and what Sean asked me to talk about was our project priorities and dependencies. And so, as we've moved forward, we've kind of pushed and pulled and tried to rearrange these projects in a way that accommodates what the priorities are as what we understand, and then also the important thing here is to understand what the dependencies are. So some projects are dependent on other projects being completed. And so the first top four, I have 2 3s in there, but those five items are basically a narrative. But as I read through it, there's a lot to digest. So I did this metric, which is below, and I'll kind of tell you how to read that. So the orange, basically, if wanted, if you want the power upgrade, the panel room, the HVAC, the VOC building, or the cafeteria kitchen, then as you go across in the green, you have to complete
So Scott,
the
let's
previous.
pause. Okay, orange is the left-hand column.
Correct.
It says if wanted, because they have black and white here.
Gotcha.
If wanted, that's your orange row.
Yep. And then
column.
must complete goes across the top.
Yeah, must complete across the top. That's the green.
Yes. So for example, if you want the power upgrade, then we must complete the panel room in some form. And then we can talk about what that involves, but I've also provided basically a narrative under power upgrade up above it. So basically the way it shakes out is the power upgrade, we have to do it. The existing power service of the building is already over 100%. Anything that we do will require the power to be upgraded. We just don't have enough juice to run everything. And so in order to do the power upgrade and phase the project and not create a big disruption within the school, the panel room / hallway is required. However, we join those two together to kind of realize a little bit of economy of scale on that portion of the project. But I have some cost savings ideas on the next page we can go over. So we can basically take that panel room and hallway and redesign it and shrink it down. So we only build a portion that's required for the new power panels. So those two go hand in hand. And feel free, anybody can interrupt me when we're going through these, because I know there's a lot to absorb and you might forget your question.
I got something to say, Scott. I
Sure.
think maybe to save some time, I hope we can all agree that the power upgrade and the HVAC isn't and shouldn't be a option. Those should be an absolute. So we should be only choosing from 3.
So can I make a list, or can I make a list of what you guys are suggesting then to kind of keep that in order? Does that work for you guys? Okay, so I'm hearing from you, top priority 1 and 2 is the HVAC and the power upgrade.
Yes.
Panel upgrade. Thanks.
So Scott, if
VOC
we're
cafeteria and panel room.
opening the discussion here, then the question is on the electrical upgrade, based upon the rest of the decisions of the night, will that change what is upgraded? Or is that going to be status no matter what is determined?
That will be status no matter what's determined.
Okay, thank you.
Since we're asking questions, can I ask one really quick? The HVAC for the, if you look at the April 12th, 2022 document, item 2C22, HVAC at the gymnasium, can you help us understand how this rolls into the HVAC system? And is that a requirement of the HVAC system, or is that a want? And if we don't do the gymnasium, what are the downsides versus the upsides? Kind of give us a scope of that and understanding.
So originally we had the gymnasium HVAC and the classroom HVAC as 2 separate things, just because of what our initial phasing was. And also because of the consideration of a potential seismic grant. The The seismic grant would have been awarded. The main focus of that would have been the gym. And not knowing what the approach would be or what the seismic grant would take care of, we didn't want to put a new HVAC unit on top of the gym and then come back with the seismic and then, have it be an issue. So that's why those were two separated. But now they're going together because once the HVAC upgrade to the classrooms is completed, there won't be any means to heat the gymnasium because the boiler will be offline.
Thank you. I'm sorry, I think we were discussing the panel room and hallway with just the requirements for that.
Yeah, so the power upgrade and the panel room go hand in hand. That's what it's serving. HVAC requires the power upgrade and the panel room. And so if we did the power upgrade, the panel room, and HVAC, they would all fly without another project basically interrupting them from happening. The VOC building requires the power upgrade and the panel room as well. So that project is again dependent on the power upgrade and the panel, but it kind of sits by itself as well. Kitchen cafeteria requires everything else to be done. It requires the power upgrade because of the new kitchen equipment. It's all electric. You guys don't have natural gas out there, and propane is an issue and those sorts of things. It requires a panel room to house the power upgrade. It would require the HVAC upgrade because as designed, the kitchen is in the boiler room. And so we have to have a new HVAC because we need to get rid of the boiler because we're repurposing that space. It's a cost-effective way to do it. So we're not building new stuff. And then we would also need to have the VOC building done because the cafeteria is taking the space of the existing vocational arts shop and classroom. So they need to go someplace, being the VOC building. So the kitchen and the cafeteria basically need all other 4 phases to be completed in order for it to work. Does that make sense? We have been brainstorming a little bit. If you look at the last page, and again, these are low-hanging fruit things that can be modified without interrupting the metric. The first thing would be that the power upgrade would be to remove the generator sled, but maintain all the infrastructure for a future generator at a later time. The cost savings that would be appreciated through the sled, the transfer switch, and all of the controls and everything from our engineers, about $275,000. The panel room and the panel room.
Sorry, there was a question on what does that leave for a backup?
It would leave you where you're at now, where you have to pull the backup from the trailer like you guys usually do. And again, I'm not saying to do this. I'm just saying that these are, because we're here, we need to talk about, what some of the options are. The panel room and hallway, I kind of addressed this a little bit earlier. What we think is a good thing to do would be to get rid of the covered, enclosed hallway portion and simplify the panel room, and then reconfigure it as we need to maintain egress. Because right now there's not an egress path from the main school to the shop. It's not accessible. So we would deal with that with, you know, just an exterior slab, and then we could put a covered walkway over the top of it. And that would be, you know, we're thinking that would probably save us about $250,000. HVAC, as it's designed right now, the gymnasium is not air conditioned, but it does have a natural ventilation, an automated natural ventilation system, which basically determines what the outside air pressure is, and then say at 3 in the morning or something, when it's the coolest, it will pull cold night air in and basically replace all the air in the gymnasium. And then as the day progresses, at least it's not hot and stuffy in there. And because of the temperature range in ALSI, you know, it gets hot, but then it cools down quite a bit. That really helps, and those controls are very minimal cost. Air conditioning is real expensive. So that's how we're going at it now. If it's deemed that air conditioning is a must in the gymnasium, then we can have it be an add alternate, or we can get that pricing separate. But as we're moving forward now, and considering all the other numbers, we haven't included that. DOC building, we've gone through, I don't know, 4 iterations of this. Scratched my head, looked at it. Really, the only thing that we can do as far as modifying the main design right now would be to get rid of the front ADA ramp and have the ADA access come off of the road that you drive down to get to the parking lot. I didn't do that initially because I didn't want to have a means of egress up a road, but it would comply. The cost is probably going to be about $30,000 savings to get rid of that ramp and stuff in the front. I wouldn't suggest doing that, but that's really the only thing I could come up with to make that a little bit more streamlined. The cafeteria and kitchen, and again, these are ideas. I would construct the kitchen with the bond monies, because that's pretty highly technical area where you have lots of plumbing, lots of mechanical, lots of code requirements, kitchen hoods, all that stuff. And if necessary, you could remodel the cafeteria space, which is the old VOC, using district forces and funding. So we could look very, very carefully at, okay, we build the kitchen, we cut the holes in the walls that we need. We would want to reinforce that back wall, but all of the finishes, painting, everything else in there, that could be done outside of the contract if we need to. Using like maintenance funds or something like that. The other thing that we could do and just be really mindful of it is to make all the new finishes in the cafeteria and kitchen code required bare minimum, meaning it would be nice, it would be complete, it wouldn't be super fancy at all. And so it's been my experience in the past. It's like, okay, we're gonna get this space done and we're gonna have it occupiable. And then some people have a different understanding what's gonna happen, and they go in and it's like, well, you guys just painted it and, you know, didn't really do anything. Well, it's occupiable and you can use it for its use. And I just want to put that out there, saying we could probably do that with minimal cost, but it's not going to look brand spanking new. So those are some things that we could consider.
Okay, so I guess let's open it for questions and discussion. Unless actually, Derek, do you have anything you want to add at all, or anything you want to talk through with subcontractors or anything like that? I mean, we can throw questions at you too. I just want to give you the floor if you have anything you want to add.
Yes, I'll reiterate what Sean and had said earlier about subcontractors and what we're doing them. The electrical, we haven't had that discussion specifically yet. How we-
Not yet, but I've intimated it, so you can go ahead and update them.
So. Things are, yep, yeah, sorry. Oh, that's right. So we had some issues with the chosen electrical subcontractor and since parted ways with them. So as a result, we don't have currently the equipment purchased. And so what I have discussed with Sean and as an option, and we're doing this with other schools, we are a licensed electrical subcontractor or contractor. And so we're pre-purchasing all the equipment in-house and putting the markup on the equipment and getting it going. In those scenarios, we hire labor only. And it has expedited the process of getting the equipment inside where we have an issue with our electrical sub. Starts to make a lot more sense for you guys. To get the generator going and some switch gear, which are two huge lead items. One lead item. So that was my suggestion. Working through all the different scenarios of what we can fit within the given budget certainly is tall order. If it was sure we make some very important decisions.
Thank you.
Okay, I think we need to start with the generator. So first of all, we don't lose that much school for power. Typically, if it's out that way, we get it from the coast. If it's out that way, we get it from Philomath. It's 3 hours. And if it's stormy,
It's not
the
always.
school's gonna send them home anyways. So that's kind of more of a luxury item, I would think.
So what is the cost of the generator right now?
Well, they said 250. No,
And the
yeah,
switches?
275.
See, and I'm sorry, he was saying to add that and he's saying not to. Is that where I got that?
No, I was basically stating that if we wanted to go with the generator as is, we can pre-purchase the generator now based on our ability to do electrical work. So if we chose to go that route, then yes, we could just go and purchase it. I'm personally different on the generator side of things, coming from a small community myself. But ultimately, it's up to you guys choose the generator. The money for.
Can I interject really quick? I just have,
Yep.
I have just a question, I guess. How much do we need to cut to make budget financially? That's the question I think I need to understand in my brain. Just a dollar amount. Anybody got it for me?
That was one of my big questions too.
I said, before we start talking about what to change, it's almost like, what do we need to cut? Dollar amount.
Well, I think
We
it's
never
gonna
know.
be dependent. I mean, like that $600,000 increase was totally blindside everybody.
For the panel in the hallway.
Basically, the VOC or the cafeteria and kitchen.
Yeah.
So I
Say
think,
that again.
Those two big things, VOC, cafeteria, kitchen. Can't do the VOC if we don't move the cafeteria.
Yeah,
Basically, we can upgrade the utilities at the school.
That's it.
I mean, correct me if I'm wrong, but either way, we're basing our decision on numbers that don't really exist, right? Because you still don't have a GMP. So your numbers aren't correct. So you can't tell us that we have this amount of money to work with, or that the panel is gonna cost $675,000 when you don't have contractors and you don't have a GMP.
I would say the annual cost of the VOC class was pretty low value with subcontractors.
Okay, but you have,
I'm not having.
you increase $377,000 in 3 months on the panel room and hallway, but only $500,000 for your original VOC center. So the numbers just don't add up to me.
but what I think the overall call is happening here is, we're being faced with obviously large increases, but I think we're gonna have to take the shift away from all these amazing new classes or programs we can offer kids. There's grant money and stuff out there to help increase the different class opportunities. I think we need to rein in and we all know the bond was super close. There was half the community that didn't want it, half of us did. And so one thing I could think we all could agree on moving forward is the fact that we need to make sure that this school is sustainable for the future.
Safety.
That means the safety of the kids, that means heating, cooling, maybe even introducing the windows back into the mix and making sure that we're making this facility the best that it can be moving forward. And then having the future outlook of the different things we can add on and make other enhancements to curriculum and programs and such like that. Being kind of put on the spot and not having an opportunity to talk to my fellow BOC members about some of these figures, that's just where my gut tells me that I think the community could come together and agree. That's my 2 cents.
Well, I think that's what this time is for. So if you have stuff to talk about on these numbers, have at her. I mean, that's
Well, I
what
just
we're
wish it
here
was
for.
That's what we're
more
here for.
solid. I
So-
wish we had a better idea.
I think I have a question to that, but I want to let Deb go really quick.
So my understanding is with the money that we've spent, the numbers that we're looking at, we have 4.5 million. So we started at 4.3, we took out the 368, we added the 474 and the 163 back.
Yep.
That gives us 4.5.
Yes,
Okay, so then we're looking at 2 million for the VOC,
Yep,
correct?
yep.
And then we're looking at 675,000 for the power upgrade, correct?
no.
Well, that's what it,
Yeah,
Yes.
yes.
yeah,
Oh,
That's
yeah,
what
the
it
new
went up
panel
to.
room and
Went up
hallway
to.
was 675,000.
That was
And
with the
then plus
hallway.
500 or actually.
So,
didn't it
okay,
come
hold
in
on,
at
hold on,
700 and
hold on.
something?
So 675 and what?
So Scott, correct me if I'm wrong. I'm looking at your 412 memo. On 1B7, it says new panel room and hallway, 298,000 was the estimate.
but now it's been.
And that bid came in at 675,000, correct?
Correct. But
That's where-
that that was one of the things I think we can save quite a bit. And reduce the scope of that to just have a 8x10 room for the panels. Don't do the hall. Put a covered walkway over it and cut that in half, if not more.
So then we're looking at 2 million for the VOC. And then we're looking at 500 for the power upgrade plus the 675, which you're going to try and lessen. Is that correct?
Power
Yes, we're gonna try to lessen the hallway. I don't, Derek can speak to what the power upgrade cost is.
Yes.
It's 700 for the
It's like
power,
750,000.
because we were already
Yeah.
over 200 some $1,000 already on there.
750 and then 675 and then the 2.
Yes,
But he's saying he can make the panel room smaller and down to what amount?
If I could,
Sure.
the hallway and panel room was a mixture of multiple walls, multiple door frames, hardware, openings, roofing, and ramp, pump, double spots. A lot of hands-on activity in there for trade workers. buildings. The switchgear room that we would need to go to now, if we cut the hallway out, it's basically a rectangular box with a flat slab in it. It gets much simpler on the scale, something that small is light years ahead of what we would do if it was just a hall. The square foot comparisons in there to build those 2 different styles would be substantial.
So then do you have a number change then for that
That's
versus?
just it. This is my problem.
Can I say something really quick? We're not going to take community patron comments during this conversation with the work session, but we will have comments open for when we go into our normal board session.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Go ahead. Cheryl.
Can I go ahead?
Yes.
Debbie, done?
For right this second, I
Okay.
still didn't get the answer I was looking for.
Right. So Scott, I have encountered you since last September. We've had many, many conversations about this and budget. And so now you're telling us that the panel in the hallway in April was $298. Now it's going to $675. That's over $300,000. We still do not and are not guaranteed what the costs are going to be by the time you get a contractor. It could be another month, 2 months, and our bids could be even higher. There is no guarantee about what these costs are going to be. I'm sorry, I wasn't here last month for my bond committee meeting because I would have been blowing it. I'm upset. I'm really, really upset and very disappointed, both in you and CB. I think CB should have been stepping up a long time ago. They are the main contractors of this job. They should have been in here working with their business, doing this and proceeding with this. I have been in a construction company as a residential, not a commercial, but
Okay.
when we write out a contract, we
Cheryl.
do it.
I'm gonna
I'm
stop you for just a
sorry.
second. I know, and if you need to take a recess, I'm gonna ask that you absolutely do
I'm
that.
taking
I want you to be able to be a part of this conversation, but I also need to acknowledge the elephant in the room, that a lot of this is, I don't want us finger pointing at people. We need to rebuild a foundation right now, and part of that is there's a lot of missing information that Straight Line didn't have privy knowledge to, neither did CB Construction. So your
And
frustrations.
we didn't either.
And you
Obviously.
didn't, and neither did the board. So, you know, we can point fingers or we can have resolution conversations. So that's where I want to take this. So let's all just take a deep breath. You're bringing up very fair concerns. Take a deep breath. And what
Okay, let's
what is
just
the
go back to
action
the
you'd like?
bid.
What was it? What was the action like point?
The bid is that what's gonna happen in 2 months? That bid could go another 100 grand.
Okay,
So right now,
So-
all costs on any job are about 30 days out. You know, from my experience. We have some contracts that we have 5 days to decide whether or not we're gonna do this or not, because the price of materials is increasing that fast right now. So you cannot get bids in here to do this work in 3 months, 4 months. You have to do it as you go. That's the way businesses are going.
But we can't with this kind of funding.
so can I?
Right.
Yeah.
Can I
go
go,
ahead.
can I
I'm
go around in
sorry.
a circle really quick? Because I just want to get all of these questions down because there's a lot of them. So Keenan, you kind of started with some questions about thoughts around the is it GMP? Is that it?
Guaranteed maximum price.
Okay,
Mhm.
so we need some information on where we are with that process, correct?
Well, yeah, I mean, I honestly think this conversation's pointless until we have some actual numbers.
Okay,
We can't decide on what we want to spend money on when we don't know what the price and things are. You
Okay.
can't make a decision on these until we have
That's right.
a number to them, and we can't have a number to them until you guys have your GMP and you have subcontractors that give you a number.
Okay.
I'll back up and clarify the GMP. So GMP is created after we receive subcontractor bids and compile a budget that fits within your budget and constraints.
Right.
And so the GMP is not driven by just the same number. And so we bid out VOC, we bid out the hallway, we bid out main power upgrades. So we have, for the most part, our numbers on those. We have a few straggling subcontractors that we haven't gotten the numbers on. So really the
Last-
conversation,
Last I talked to Andy, the 675 was not a solid number because you didn't have the GMP or subcontractors.
there are some trades that we don't have the subtrades on, however.
That's,
Always specifically, we're comfortable with what we have.
and personally, Derek, what upsets me is we keep getting this runaround. I mean, you said you have the GMP, but we have a couple subcontractors that we don't have numbers for. You can't give us solid numbers until you have those numbers.
You're correct. We're using historic values for some of our other stuff. that we're so-
Right. Which for a small bond project like this, those small numbers can be huge. We can't have that small, we need to know exactly what we're getting. I mean,
So-
it's a
I'm gonna,
$4 million bond. We have to know the smallest amount is huge for us.
So I believe we are carrying 10% contingency in our budgets to cover some of that in our budgets. that we've published.
we would need to see those budgets. I don't believe that that's been presented to the board or bond committee at this time, but I could be wrong on that. I haven't seen those budgets, so, but that being said, Richard, I think I talked over you at one point. Did you have any question or, and I'm not shutting down the conversation, I'm just trying to get things in order, sorry.
No, I think what we need to do is decide what our priorities are, and then they can go out and get the bids for those, and then we'll see what we have.
Okay,
I mean, there's no other way around it. You cannot propose all this stuff and get all these bids in and then say, 2 months from now, decide what you want to do. The bids are gonna go up. Again, they're gonna jump.
And it kind of goes back to the April 12th.
Yeah.
No, because we had to prioritize.
Yes.
So from my
With some-
experience, at
yeah.
OSU, we have a project going right now, it's $2.5 million. It is 75% under budget. That's how much it increased in a year.
So the problem, you brought up the big gap, April to now.
Mhm,
Okay,
mhm.
if we have to take this long to get in front of you guys again to make these decisions, we're just gonna keep running in circles chasing our tail.
so I'm gonna add that down to a decision point. That we need more timely meetings to be able to have decisions, is that correct? Okay.
In my opinion, we can't have timely meetings when they don't have contractors giving bids. So we're just chasing our tail. So
So wait, 1 second. So did you want to talk about the VOC building? I was hoping.
well, yeah, I think we could do a lot with the VOC that doesn't include that,
Okay,
but we can come to that when you want it in order.
Deb, you had some questions.
Didn't he just say he had a bunch of those numbers? He just hasn't forwarded those to us yet. He's gotten some subcontractors to do this work, right?
Yes, we have.
And are they ready to go now if we make this decision to start these projects or start a project so we don't keep chasing our tail? So which contractors do you have or numbers do you have that we can move forward with? On any of them, I mean, because I'm hearing on one hand that we don't have subcontractors, and then I'm hearing on the other hand that we do have numbers. So I would like to know if we have numbers, what do we have numbers on?
We did have an electrician power upgrade until Friday when we drew online.
So we don't have an electrician now?
Right now, we don't have we do have one other bid from another vendor that was $200,000.
On that note, real quick, you guys are an electric contractor. Can you do it?
So that's where I was going with earlier.
Well, that's what I was trying to
Yeah.
get out of him was, what do you have for us? What can we decide
What do
on
we have that?
to move forward?
So I agree with that question, but I want to get everybody's questions down because I think that we're asking a lot of the same questions in different ways.
Mhm.
And I'm confused, but I've dyed my hair plenty of times, so that should be a problem, so. Ron, did you have anything you wanted to add? You've been quiet back there, but I know you have been here since the very beginning. So Ron, is there anything you want to, that you have any questions on?
Three things I see we need. We need the power upgrade, we need the HVAC. That's two things. VOC, if it doesn't happen, it doesn't happen at this time. Understand, we need it. It'd be great for the school. But it's eating up 2 million of our 4.3 million, 4.5 million. Power grade we need, VAC, HVAC we need. The rest of it can come later. But those two things
On that.
have to happen.
Really?
Hmm.
Cafeteria can come later.
On that topic, we can't do anything if the shop doesn't move. So all we get is power and HVAC.
Right.
But that's not gonna total
Well, we
our
can
amount of
upgrade the
money,
shop.
but then we'll never move it.
Wouldn't have to.
But couldn't we reinvest our ideas elsewhere? So we took out a middle school building. Is that cheaper than the VOC? And we then have a place that's specifically for middle school, which I think a lot of us parents of middle school kids could understand the benefit in that. Or do we look at upgrading all the windows now and making our current structures the best they can be moving forward? And then invite additional buildings in additional levies or bonds or grants. I'm sure there's other grants out there we can entertain and add on from that. But let's make what we have the best it can be. Boilers gotta happen.
Yeah, that's a must.
Power's gotta happen.
On the VOC building, though, we have nothing to stand out for other schools. The VOC building would be the only attractant to bring other kids in.
I disagree.
So I'm gonna, before we have that conversation, I think it's a fair point. Robert, do you have anything you want to ask or add to all of this at this point?
Come on, Robert, you know something.
Linda, okay. So the one big question I'm hearing, I'm gonna summarize all of this. Well, Scott, you're gonna get a turn because I think it's gonna be aimed at both you and Derek.
Okay.
At what point do you guys decide, are you gonna bid all of this and get us some final numbers? And by final, I mean, let's put the project as a whole and get this bid. Is that a possibility? Because otherwise, we're gonna continue doing this, correct? And how do you meet our needs that we're identifying here?
So if I can step one little baby step back. So a GMP means guaranteed maximum price. And so let's say that we have half the subcontractors bid and the other ones are budget numbers. If you sign the contract and it's a guaranteed maximum price, that's what the guaranteed maximum price is through CB Construction. If things go up, contractually, that's what the price is, and so in a way, CB is taking the risk. Okay. As we move forward, we haven't built really anything, together yet. But the way that it works is the CMGC process is that all of the bids that Derek has and has put together, it's completely transparent. You'll see everything. You'll see, okay, this is what the electrical is. This is what, the painters wants, everything. It will all be above board. You'll see where all the numbers are. So right now you're seeing the spreadsheets, but Derek, provide, these are our bids. This is where we're at. Okay. Now, typically when you do this process, there are 4 or 5 subcontractors that aren't awarded or don't have any interest, or it's high or something like that. And it's the CMGC's job to plug a number in, a budget number, to cover what that is, kind of as a placeholder. That's pretty common, not half of them, but maybe 4 or 5 sometimes, because there's just not trades there. There's not, so you build the budget around what the budgeted number is, and you put a value in for it. As the project moves on, that gives, if we need a contractor for gypsum board, right? That's an easy one to figure out, but we don't have a bid or the bid's too high, then Derek would plug that number in, and then a month or 2 later, they would be trying to get a better number. And then when that value comes in, they replace the budgeted number with the actual bid number and would share that with you. So that's a common thing that happens on every project. Okay. It's yes.
Deb, did you have a question?
I did have a question. So what I'm understanding from Derek is nobody wants to give us a GMP, correct?
No,
It's
no, but
our GMP with you folks. We're missing.
Well, what I was, before I get back to your question, if I could. We talked about the first bid package was the power upgrade.
Correct.
Our bid package number 2 is the hallway. Work there out. 14 bids in, 6 remain that we don't have bids for right now. And the biggest single one missing in there was mechanical.
Mechanical, not electrical.
Mechanical contract. I mean, we have a couple of fans we're missing, well, we didn't have a number for West Carpentry, but that scope of work is gonna go down substantially, just with, if we go just to the full wall project, which we're probably gonna do more stuff.
Okay.
So, drywall was, we don't have heat yet, but again, the hallway was heated. The switchgear room doesn't heat. Put the walls up, put the drywall up, and tape them, any cost to go away, the cost of the district will go away.
Okay,
And then from there, we have signage and specialties. We put a couple of emergency signs up. And a couple of items on the wall. For the VOC, we have 12 bids in. Acknowledge, we have more than that. Some of the, actually, we did get a couple of multiple bids on different scopes. There are 11 remaining. Again, the highest single remaining bid get is mechanical, the mechanical system. I've been working with one sub for 3 weeks. The one person who called back and said, I'm interested, but he hasn't given us a number. He's trying to find the time to sit down and do that work.
and when do you expect to hear from him?
Last week, I called him again today. He's going in early tomorrow. It's been trying to do something before the end of this week. It's been that way for a week after we sub out. And it's as frustrating for me, and for us on our side as it is for you.
I understand, and I know that you guys are under a bus right now, and it's really hard. I mean, it is what it is, and like she said, we really need to figure it out.
Yes, we do. We all collectively. need to do
Mhm.
Good. I said real quick, the scopes that are open here, rough carpentry that we talked about with the hallway. Countertops and casework. We have a gentleman looking at that for us. Siding on the building. I can't find anybody who wants to put up metal siding. We'll do wood or the synthetic siding, but the metal, they're shying away from. So I talked to the guy on the way down tonight. What if we were to buy the material direct, you just bring labor and equipment to put in. Some of these people are afraid of having too much money on the table. Maybe their bank account can't handle the load on their finances. We need to be in a little better position. Finished carpentry, painting. We mentioned painting before, and I'm talking to a painter on both. All the VOC, and then here again, signage and specialties. Fixing gates, and then we have a landscaping alliance. We don't have a detail yet, but we've got money in the budget for landscaping in the building that needs to be designed. We can find a subcontractor who can do both.
Do we have to do landscaping? Can we not do it ourselves?
That, I think that's it.
I mean, because how much is in the budget for that?
$22,000.
Can I ask a question? How much work would it take for us to get an entire Gantt chart, not a PDF format, but a true Excel document Gantt chart with an associated budget?
Pretty simple.
Could we get that in the next 48 hours? Would that be an acceptable time frame?
I think that's a great idea. I think that's gonna answer a lot of questions. Ryan, I saw you think something about the.
Well,
siding.
I think the VOC can be multiple things. It can be classrooms, it can be a shop room. It does not have to be a finished VOC right now.
Just a show.
It can be a shell. We can come back and we can put things in it when we can. But we have option for classrooms.
Yeah.
We have options for a shop, and we have options for expansion because some of it's not even enclosed. So it can be multiple things. If we don't put it as a shop right now, it's not a shop right now.
I agree. And it opens up for our kitchen to move as we have.
Yes,
time
because
and
that's the
money.
whole thing. If we want a kitchen cafeteria, we have to lose something here.
Yeah, I agree.
I have a question on just that. If it was just the shell of the VOC and none of the fancy stuff inside of it, what does that look like for cost? Has that been looked at all? I mean, or are we surprising you with our ideas today?
No, we can strip out that stuff and do the cost.
Okay.
I think that's a great idea.
And then I just wanted to add that there was a conversation that took place. I just want, this is more for this group right here. There was a conversation that took place with some of, the staff, and operationally, what I heard was they're not asking for anything fancy. This school, and I really appreciate where this came from the administrator that talked with us, was nobody's looking at putting a flashy building up, because LC, we're not a flashy community in general. And so to throw up a building like that is kind of, doesn't show any humility or respect for the funds that we're playing with right now. So I think operationally, you would find a lot of support in your school staff that would like to have that building still and use it for a lot of different reasons. And I think you would find a lot of community supporters, business owners, things like that, alumni that would love to be able to help with things like that. So that was
That's what
just,
sold the community on the bond in the first place.
so that would be really helpful to understand what does that cost savings look like if we just have a structural building? And I think to that point, I know you said the metal pole barn is not an option.
Well, a
but-
metal building,
But what
not
is
a
it?
pole barn.
Well, what in here, sorry, in this documentation, it says pole building or pole barn, but what is the difference between a metal building and that, and why can't we stand up one of the self-constructed metal buildings that doesn't require architects to design that? And Scott, you may have the answer for that. I'm sorry for giving you a headache. But
Okay.
it's just one of those questions that we keep coming back to of what makes that not deemed structurally sound.
So you can do a metal building, that a metal framed engineered structure that complies with school requirements. We do it all the time for like gymnasiums and those sorts of things. It doesn't, the main driver is the eave height. Okay, so
Is the what?
Is the what?
it's the height of the wall on the outside. So if once you go over a certain height of like a gym's really tall, right? It's difficult to make anything, it's difficult to make wood work if it goes over 12 feet tall. Okay, so the outside walls, if they're below 12 feet, general rule of thumb, it's cheaper to do framed. You go over, and I'm not talking about like a hay barn. I'm not talking about, even a residential. I'm talking about the requirements that we need to meet for a school. You go over that 12 feet, and then the metal building starts kind of coming into its own because wood won't do it. Wood won't seismically do it. And Derek can kind of agree with that, Derek?
Yeah, a lot of it's market dependent too, on material pricing. So you're still building, depending on what you want or what the inside wants to be. Your still buildings will have like a scrim footing on the walls, which is scrim just like a really heavy duty white plastic. And so for a shop building, you really don't want that scrim because you're probably doing some welding, some wood shop stuff. Kids are throwing sticks around and poking holes in it and putting insulation everywhere. And so for like shop building with a steel frame structure, you probably want hard walls like plywood or gypsum board.
See, what happens is you have the shop and you have outlets and power drops and all those kinds of things, air lines, and like Derek was speaking to, that scrim is relatively, delicate. And so by the time that you have a lower building, 12 feet or below, ours is below that. I did that deliberately so that the wood would make sense. By the time that you figure out what to finish those with, and you get to where you need to be to have it be a space that will function as a classroom, you're kind of like, it's the same, or even more sometimes. And so I've done this like half a dozen times. Now, if we wanted to have a really tall building and we wanted to, approach it and have it 2 stories or needed those sorts of things, a metal building would be a great option. The other reason that we were looking at this is because now that we were able to get it to work, that's framed, is that it's not a specialized construction type. And they can start building it right now. Metal buildings are 6 months out, 8 months out. And so we were trying to be mindful of the timing as well.
As it's just a B option, like throughout the VSC. Half of your footprint, essentially half of your footprint is open storage space that has to have some kind of finish. That has to have a roof, it has to have fencing. It has to have concrete for shear walls and structural requirements. And I don't know what that benefit of storage is to the school. Obviously, it has a lot of benefit because everybody, regardless of the industry that you're in, storage is number one complaint and get me going. But as a B option, I would say you could just cut that off, get rid of it, remove the mezzanine storage area, and just keep the rectangular building with a fish roof as it is. That would be a huge B option for your building, and then maybe look at some other options for storage like Funix containers. And you can get a 40-foot Funix box for $6,000, and maybe you have a small Funix or something that stores some of your critical items that you would put under there. But those just be throw out there. Obviously, it's not attractive, but you would get your VOC shop at a much more economic price. Have all those amenities in it, and still have some storage.
Now, just to clarify, the mezzanine has all of your mechanical equipment in it.
But you can do stuff with that. So instead of mezzanine, if you went that route with rectangular, you could do all attic trusses through there, which are very expensive compared to the I-joist mezzanine that we have currently designed for your system. We do attic truss mezzanines and medical clinics and hospitals.
With that being said, though, you guys gotta remember that extra covered space wasn't just for storage.
No.
That was to be at some point be able to build onto and have a full 7,000 square foot building would be huge for whether it's more classrooms, different shop, whatever.
But so that's built as a 2-story? I guess I haven't seen the plans, but is it built or is it like a livable truss?
Right now, as it's currently designed, the middle, kind of that middle, I'm gonna call it plant east portion, we have a mezzanine that's all I-joist system up there. And then basically there's 3 trusses that go into this. There's the trusses on the cover storage side, trusses on the classroom side, and then the cap truss that sits on top of the mezzanine. So it's almost like 2-story. The truss span is so large that you do trusses and get them out here to the site.
So we're-
What's the size on this?
I forget the span of it.
I think it's,
In terms of adding on to this in
Can I
the
see
future,
that, Jim? I'll give it right back.
you can,
I just wanted to see.
if you were to VE down to just
yeah.
that rectangular portion for the classrooms, you
Derek,
can still add on to that.
explain to people what VE stands for.
Oh, value engineering.
Thank you.
Yeah.
So if we were to cut the cost and cut that building back to just a single run of trusses, just attic trusses the whole way. In the future, if you decided to add on to the building, say to where that covered storage was, you can still do that with some overframing trusses onto your existing building. That would be relatively easy to design those connections in for future use. So you would still have the option. They wouldn't look the same, obviously, and so you'd have kind of like a T-shaped or an L-shaped building. But that is an option.
the size of this.
So I had a couple questions. One, were we originally building it more than 12 feet tall? So we were gonna go metal, or was that just?
I think the original
Correct.
was like 16 feet or something that was scaled back to 12 feet.
And so
Yeah, this
were we
whole thing,
doing
right?
that for a reason? Or was it, no, I mean the
16 feet.
16 feet, were we doing that originally for what reason going to 16 feet?
So
Is there something?
the building's 82 foot by 82 foot. Originally, it was a full build out. When you go through and you start designing and looking about what needs to happen, you get a lot of input from a lot of different people. And it was a taller building because there was an actual second story storage mezzanine, and it had 2 classrooms in it, and it had a wood shop and a metal shop. And so considering all the components and what needed to happen at that time, it made the most sense to do it that way.
So moving it back to 12 feet isn't a big issue.
For functionality of the space, no, it was originally taller because they wanted a mezzanine space that would be used for storage.
Okay, that got my question. I'm good.
Part of the drive in the way that it's laid out now is that the mechanical platform will accommodate wood shop stuff later. And all of your mechanical equipment's inside. And it's been my experience that if you make, Keenan's a great guy as far as like maintaining stuff. Most school districts don't have a Keenan. Okay. And so what will happen is when he leaves, and a lot of the mechanical units and stuff are hard to get to or something, filters won't be changed. Things won't be maintained, those sorts of things. And in the VOC shop, when you're dealing with fumes and dust, I'm just concerned with that. And so that's why that approach of having that mechanical mezzanine in, so that you can protect your equipment, check your filters, all of that stuff. That's why that was done. Now, what Derek's saying is we can do that. There'll just be more of a deliberate maintenance effort. And if there's stuff outside, it's salty and wet there, and it'll get ruined, and it won't last as long. So that was kind of that driving force for the configuration now. But if we need to modify it, we can modify it. That was what.
So quick math on these numbers. So I do know Relco will do 80-foot free span trusses. They said they do up to 100. It would only be a 13-foot truss at a 412. So it is doable to truss that without the mezzanine up top.
So, okay, so we need a couple things, I think. We need a priorities list, and I believe, I'm gonna look to the board here, but I think that we'd like a priorities list to come from the bond committee first, so that we can address that as a board in open session. Is that, anybody in disagreement with that? And then I guess the next question is, we need to understand, I think as a group, how do we get to some final dollar amounts to be able to start really making decisions to move forward? So what does CV and Straight Line need from this group to be able to really start ironing out dollars? And is there any way we can get like a whole project cost so we can, keep kind of going through that?
Yeah, so the bid numbers and the amounts and the timeline of the construction, that is a means and methods to construction of the plans. So Straight Line works, it's a 3-legged stool. We all work together. But as far as delivering the amounts, the bid amounts, and the duration of the construction, that's a CB thing. I don't have any control over that. That's not me. But if we need to modify design or need to VE things, for example, the hallway, that's when I would be responsible for working with getting input from you guys and CB to redesign those so that CB can go out and get revised numbers.
One thing that didn't get brought up was the asbestos, the boiler room and asbestos abatement. I didn't see that in the cost modifications, but there is the possibility that we can seal off. If I'm understanding correct, we can seal off that room And we don't have to pay for we don't have to remove the asbestos and pay for that abatement either, correct, Scott?
Correct. You're not gonna do the kitchen or cafeteria at this time? Yes. You don't need to demo it.
So
But if you do the kitchen and cafeteria, we'll have to abate it. Is that what I'm hearing, Scott?
Correct.
Correct.
okay,
Yeah, the VOC building is kind of it's the fork in the road. Do we do that? And then you can have the kitchen and the cafeteria later, or potentially, or do you not? And then go through and do deferred maintenance to the existing school and burn up the rest of that money. That's kind of, in a short and sweet, that's what it is. That's kind of where we're at, the way I view it.
Can we not take what we are currently set as clear priority? Get solid numbers on that and find out what we have to work with as far as the remainder of our funds. And then we can decide from there, but we would really love to see the more solid numbers for the things that we've already tried to. I think we're all in agreement.
So what I'm hearing, and it's a good point, what I'm hearing is you're wanting to see this April 12th memo on priority projects 1, 2, and 4. We have estimates from 412. You're wanting those figures updated? Is that what I'm hearing?
Well, I'm not thinking that number 4 is included in that. I'm thinking we want to see 1 and 2.
Utility
I
upgrades.
think that I
That's stuff we have to have.
figured out where we're at based on some of the figures that we just discussed. And my thoughts about the generator is my personal thoughts. That's where I was gonna go with that, but I didn't want to speak for everybody else.
No.
So if we could get a little bit more solid figure on where those main priorities come into play, we know what we have left to play with.
So with or without the hallway,
For
the utility
The
upgrade.
utility.
I think you have an option on that.
you want to see the numbers for it? You want to see the numbers with and without it? Okay.
That's the only way you can make that decision.
Well, and I personally, numbers are good and you want to stick to a budget, but I also want to hear benefit. I mean, what is the benefit, pros and cons, one way or the other, of having a hallway versus just a covered walkway?
If you don't have a kitchen there, why do you need even a covered walkway? That's what I'm struggling with.
Yeah.
Really don't need either one.
Because our kids already walk from here all the way to the classrooms over here and back every day.
So if you leave it as the shop, then they can actually access that way.
Good.
Yeah, I have two different questions on that whole thing. And that is, there's been some serious structural things with that shop. And is it fixable? I mean, seriously fixable for the long run?
They're gonna turn it into a cafeteria,
Well,
so I imagine it's fixable enough to make it structurally sound to utilize.
It would be
Once that
fixed
wall
if
is
we built the
done.
cafeteria, right, Derek?
That was
Yeah, we have
included in the.
We have to do some structural upgrades
Yeah, that,
to the exterior wall to make it.
that south wall has to be sheared up.
To keep it as is. Utilized as is.
That's the full
When we
music.
have lots.
I've actually seen it when it was sinking and there was a huge hole in the wall. And it was, I mean, it's
Ventilation.
funny.
I have a question, Derek, for you. We're talking a lot about subcontractors. I know that would make your life a little bit easier to bring a subcontractor over here. I think it would be beneficial to know what CB can, I believe, okay, rumor that I understand is that when we went with your company, it was because you could also provide this work, can do this work over here. I would like to see what that looks like. I understand there's time constraints. I understand we have a contract to discuss and things like that. But I think that it would be really beneficial for us to know, where does that save us some money that we're not paying overhead with subcontractors? And if your company is able to do that, and that's a commitment that was agreed upon, I'd like to see that, see what that looks like and what that timeline looks like.
We'll say as at a company level, items that we're able to self-perform are earthwork facilities, concrete, plumbing, HVAC, electrical. We don't do a lot of framing anymore. Because there's production contractors that are way bigger than this. So we can do a fair amount of big heavy lift items. Part of the reason why we didn't submit bids on this round is the process took so long that our backlog was at a point where I didn't feel comfortable with our ability to perform the work. I will say that we've grown since a couple months ago. We've added quite a bit of staff in the different divisions, so it's looking like we probably take on some more easily. Specifically the concrete and the plumbing. The electrical, I need to talk with our supervisor, the electrician, to see what his thoughts are in terms of actually. On the surface, doesn't look complicated from a manpower standpoint. So yes.
So how do we get
I
put in
can get
line?
you- I-
Like 3 businesses ahead essentially, because this agreement essentially did come a year and a half ago. I don't know. Sorry, I apologize for not having that. But how do we get prioritized into that schedule?
How would you like to prioritize this project?
Yeah, because I kind of felt like you made that pitch to us when you came and made the pitch to get the contract. So I kind of feel like maybe we got left out of maybe what you were offering us in the beginning. And so I would like to see that because I think we all accepted you as our contractor because you gave us that from the beginning. And so from my point of view, I would like to see you step up and say, you know what? I did take this job and I am here for you. That's just my personal input.
I still have a question.
Oh, go for it.
Sorry.
Okay, so the other thing is we have a lot of conversation about the asbestos abatement and whether it should be done or not. Eventually, that's a health hazard. And yes, you can block it off and everything, but if you want to expand, you're gonna have to take that out. And absolutely, people die because of being around asbestos. So, you know, if you're gonna consider the cafeteria, we really strongly ought to make the health issue and take the asbestos out so we can do what we want to in the future.
The boiler room would be completely closed off. For anything else.
I'm still saying we should take it out.
I don't disagree. but
In order,
it
I
would be
just,
an
it's my
unusable space.
opinion. I don't want to debate it. It was just my opinion.
in order to do the cafeteria, though, if I understood that correctly, the asbestos and abatement must occur. It's not,
Yes.
okay, so.
Yeah.
So I think if that goes up, then we have to, it's the conversation of we close it off if we don't do a cafeteria. Is that,
That's, yeah. Meanwhile, it would be an unusable,
okay, gotcha.
an unusable space that we need.
You can actually seal it too. with paint and stuff.
Yeah.
So it doesn't
But-
flake off.
Scott, correct me if I'm wrong, is it in the boiler pipes, in the insulation?
It's the boiler insulation, the friable stuff.
Yeah, so it is in the wrap of the pipes?
Yes.
In the
So
boiler
it's-
itself?
In the boiler and in the wrap around. the pipe.
So we have to, we kind of have to do
So in
that.
all the classrooms.
Hold it here, guys. Thought the boiler was installed in '80. The boiler itself.
That one was,
installed in
yes.
80. If it was installed in '80, there should be no asbestos in it.
I
That's
don't know,
not true.
I don't know if they,
Not really?
No. Because if people had purchased bulk product, you're still gonna get it probably clear through the 90s.
They can still use it.
That was my understanding, what I've been taught, that after about 72, 74.
It was ours too.
We learned the hard way,
Okay.
unfortunately.
So I'm kind of with Linda on that one. I really think that should just get squeezed in there because for the health of our kids, I think we need to take care of that asbestos. I don't think we need to just seal it off. That's just my personal opinion. I know from my sister and her exposure to asbestos and what it's done to her, and it's pretty bad. So I feel like Linda, I think that may be something really important.
I got a question. So what we're saying is all the pipes through the building are all wrapped with asbestos?
No.
No?
No,
So I pulled up so before you do any work, due diligence basically says you have to do a pre-renovation asbestos survey. So we got one ordered where they went in and they did testing, materials testing, did testing for all the areas that were going to be impacted in construction. And I can resend this to you guys.
please.
So the boiler room has
3% or something.
there is some mastic, okay, which is a very small amount of mastic, which is like glue. And there's pipe insulation that came out negative. And so in the boiler room, there's also, it looks like it's mostly gypsum wallboard stuff, actually.
So it's
Just the
minor.
drywall?
It looks like it's minor.
I was gonna say, I think Mark is really adamant on having all the asbestos abated in that whole boiler room. So when I saw the asbestos, that was kind of shocking.
They don't, usually don't come in and test the mastic once you have to ask them to test the mastic.
So then why would the bid be 100,000 if there's minor asbestos in there?
Yeah, that's a pretty minor cost.
Asbestos, it's very technical.
I can tell you we had a manufactured home, we had like 2 garbage bags.
Hmm.
Yeah, it's not
Not much fun. We used to abate it.
In the wall?
under the wall.
Oh my gosh.
So you got a wall
Yeah,
out,
that's what's wrong
there'd be
with
something
it.
behind the wall.
Oh. Okay. Well, I'm with Linda on that one. I think that should be taken care of. That's just my personal
Is
opinion.
that 10? Oh, go ahead.
Can I make a suggestion on process moving forward? Because
Yes.
I feel like we're getting in a OODA loop here.
Yes.
So we kind of have our priorities. Solar valve and HVAC, electrical operator, 2 big ones. For our part, that's great. We have those. There's still a bunch of fuzziness around what comes after that.
Yes.
And I think in terms of due diligence on our side, and I spend some time go through some PE options with your DOC building, like shrinking thing up. Ryan, I don't disagree that they can make 100-foot trusses. However, they will come out in like a 3-system truss, most likely, based on design experience in the past. A lot of times they have connections in the middle because the 100-foot swing is so large, especially out here. I could be wrong. Maybe it's different over there. But
Call Relco. That's what.
regardless of it's 100 feet or 84 feet, shrinking that footprint down to half of that building that you're actually going to use in the immediate future, say 5 years, is a BE exercise. I think it's worth going through because there's a lot of costs associated with the higher peak of the roof, more roofing, more siding, more ventilation area in your add trusses, a more expensive I-joist system in that area. Foundations that go along with it. So there's quite a bit of expense there.
My understanding that this section here that is just open.
Just a couple
There's a
there.
lot of opportunity for that space as far as like a sawmill and automotive clubs and
Those are
work
stores.
classrooms.
But we can always add that later is what has been.
But it's
if
gonna
you got
cost
it,
you
that's not
more.
gonna
Cost more. Do it now while it's
That's
engineered.
taking out this whole open space that
Oh,
you
so
could do
just-
covered sawmill work or covered automotive class, or
Hmm.
it doesn't necessarily need a classroom.
So that brings up a good
But
point.
it has the potential later down the road to be closed in.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
We have I'm understanding, we have at least our first 3 priorities. Is that correct? So we have the power upgrade, the panel, and the HVAC. Okay. Now, what I think what I'd like to hear from the bond committee is, if you had to prioritize a kitchen versus a VOC building, what does that look like for you guys? And I do understand that that means that if you do, sorry, kitchen cafeteria means that we may not get a VOC building. So I understand that. So that's why I'm asking for that hard conversation to occur.
I vote for the VOC.
Yeah.
I think it's, I mean, especially if it came down to having to take out every single piece of stuff inside, the utilization of this is huge. It can be used for so many different things. Walls can be somewhat temporary.
And when I say vote for the VOC is even if it's just the shell, but that,
Exactly.
but that exact.
Yeah,
It gives us a foundation for growth.
So I will just throw this in there because, you know, I love to be devil's advocate about stuff. We're impacting a small subset of our students there where cafeteria affects all of our students. Have we thought about that as a consideration of what impacts the most amount of students?
So my view on that one is it doesn't have to be a VOC either. It could be classrooms.
Okay, so that,
Mhm.
so we can put a kitchen in there?
Cafeteria can be put in here.
Yeah.
My thought on the cafeteria and kitchen is the elementary will sit in it. High school will not.
Okay.
And that'll be a huge cafeteria for just a bunch of
And does-
elementary kids.
Is that kitchen designed to be a home ec space too and be classrooms?
The kitchen is, yes.
So we lose essentially that side of it though too. Then we do cater to the people that do mechanical and agriculture, but we don't cater to the ones that do more home ec.
So the kitchen has a separate storage area for home ec products.
Okay.
What about the current space?
We have a culinary arts
Right.
class
Yeah,
in our current space.
with the full kitchen and.
I just want to have
cooler
the
and-
conversation.
I'm just saying.
She's just bouncing what the
Right.
community
But-
is gonna bounce, why this, is not that.
Ultimately, I think that has more potential than the kitchen and cafeteria.
Well,
That's
we
my
already
personal
have-
opinion. But
They're
we could also
utilizing it, yeah.
Right.
upgrade the kitchen that we have now.
They're already
and
utilizing
Bring
it.
in new equipment and actually make it a kitchen.
So if we don't do the VOC, then the VOC program goes away.
If we do a
Because we don't have a
kitchen.
shop, yeah.
If
No,
do-
we have a shop.
If we do the kitchen and cafeteria, go away,
They go away.
because there's no space for it.
Right.
But if we leave it as a shop,
Mhm.
do the upgrades.
Why can't a portion of this building be where kids sit down, or a classroom next to the current kitchen could be where they sit, and that classroom is one classroom space in the new building? Or I just think we have so much more opportunity for multiple things.
Okay, well, in the past, I have heard lots of conversation how should work the classroom, and it's pretty critical to take the kitchen stuff out of that and make it into a classroom for other vocations. So I haven't heard anybody talk about that. Is that an important thing or not?
Are you talking about the need for additional classrooms? Is that your question?
Yeah, well, that was what they're gonna do with the kitchen, is they're gonna
Create a-
renovate it and make it
Make it
into
a
a high
classroom.
school classroom.
Mhm.
You want to take out the wall and make it 3 classrooms. That's what they're
3?
talking.
Yeah,
Boy,
Because they can take out the wall.
Those are small classrooms.
Yeah, we couldn't make it 3.
I think you make it too easy. But yeah,
Why
a
didn't
classroom,
that room 3? and then
classroom
take out
space
the
is
wall?
always valuable. And that's just essence of what your school's about, is classroom space.
What was the classroom before that?
Pardon me.
I said it was a classroom before.
Yeah, it was a classroom before. You know,
It was
one,
that classroom.
if I might comment, on the facility that we currently have. Everybody I've talked to that's in the food service industry says, it's a good serving space. It's not a good kitchen cooking and preparation space. And I just visited with the food service director from Corvallis, and we're redoing our MOU and everything. And we've been with them for years, and they're preparing the food and they truck it out here and we serve it. So that's basically what our current facility is designed for. So, you know, would it be nice to have a full-fledged kitchen for a culinary arts? Absolutely. Are we able to at least still offer some culinary arts? Yes, we are, you know, but it doesn't look like the full-blown, you know, with walk-in coolers and all those sorts of things. We make do with what we got.
Well, with the VOC, with the VOC building being built, that opens up 2 classrooms in the shop. There's the actual shop and then there's the other classroom.
That is true.
So if I'm gonna put these in order, it goes the HVAC system first. That re-
Power.
well,
Power.
Hold on, I went off this, hold on. So I said the HVAC system is the first priority, which is a requirement to have the power upgrade. So those kind of go hand in hand, but HVAC first, so that's if I put it into a priorities level. Then the panel, because that's another, in order to power upgrade, or in order to the panel, you have to power upgrade. So 1, 2, 3. 1.
But minus generator.
Yeah,
Well,
mine-
so
yeah.
I have that. Hold on one second. And then
Sorry.
the VOC. Is that correct from the committee?
VOC shall.
Well, hold on, I have that too. So VOC and then kitchen. Is that correct from the bond committee? Just for
Yes,
priorities?
Yes.
Okay, so then from CB construction, we would like a Gantt chart and budget. A full Gantt chart, usable Gantt chart that we can actually slide in and out and look at priorities of the project, and then a usable budget with and without all modifications. Is that still something that's doable really within the next 2 days, or do you need a different timeline?
See what we can do.
Let's talk about having it by the next bond meeting on August 11th. How does that sound?
I thought we were having a bond meeting this Wednesday.
Yeah, we always have our bond
Week before.
meeting the week
Week
before.
before.
Oh, okay, so.
So 2 days.
So it does, so this says August 11th, I'm sorry. So they have
That's
their
the
meeting on
next board
August
meeting, isn't it?
On
August 3rd.
3rd.
The 3rd.
Okay,
August
so you guys
3rd.
have yours on August
I'm like
3rd.
almost cold.
But if we put off decisions tonight, where does that put CB construction in terms of subcontractors? I'm a little concerned.
They got rid of the electrical, so we really don't have
We don't really have any.
any.
Well, we have a couple more.
Yeah, we do. And that's what he said is they kind of needed to nail these down. And so if we're giving them a priority, then he's already got some numbers that are working.
Right, so I think that's what we'll vote on in the session. I just want to make sure that we have all the asks from this work session that we can vote on in the next open session.
Okay.
So,
Next open
But you guys
session's
are gonna
after
take
this
over
one.
elections,
yeah,
right?
that's what I mean. So
Okay,
like,
okay,
so we'll have
okay.
our priorities list that we vote on.
So if all else fails, you have an electrical contract.
Yes,
Okay. So we
that's
have,
what I would like to see.
so we have our priorities set. We would like to see the Gantt chart and budget. They're gonna do the best they can to get us as much as they can by August 3rd, knowing that we might get a little more information on August 11th. How does that sound?
Like it.
All right. And then finally, CB Construction will be getting us a list of the ability of all the work that they can get done for us without a subcontractor, reprioritizing where they fall this project and their schedule. Does that summarize the conversation we had effectively, or did I miss something?
So, may I say one thing?
Absolutely.
though?
You say
As
whatever you
soon
want.
as soon as we get all this information and we go into contract, we want a completion date.
Okay,
So we know we're gonna get costs, but I want a completion date.
how
Well,
comfortable? oh,
We can we'll give our best guess of completion date, because there's a lot of factors that are happening right now with material. We've got switchgear in some places right now, it's like 50 weeks out.
Holy moly.
And we even we have a project, it's another school project where our HVAC equipment is delayed about 45 days because of the drywall strike. Don't know why, but
Oh, yeah.
for whatever reason, there's a drywall strike and we have to switch facilities for some reason, or their equipment. It was the most bizarre thing I've ever seen.
So the best of your ability.
Yeah.
mean, because I understand that it, not all the product is out there. I mean, I deal with it from week to week with the cafe. I get that, and it is way beyond your control. So the best of your ability, I guess.
And Andy, the 8th is a start date for moving dirt.
Well, that's. We have an earthwork contractor who's holding that date for us. And we'll be okay to
Moving.
contract.
For the dirt for the VOC building?
We have that on our open
That
session to
and
vote on.
back here.
No, we don't have an
But
earthworks.
wait, for what?
contract.
What?
Well, that's
Is it
what I mean.
for?
What's it for? Moving dirt for what? The
VOC.
VOC,
Yeah, see,
okay.
what about back here?
That's what I mean by,
We didn't know what we were doing up back there. We were doing nothing other than covering back what we put out.
Okay.
Are we doing the switch gear though? And if we're doing switch gear. how big is that?
Okay.
Rumor has it, it's not big enough for the gear that was specified, so we need to drop that.
So
Well,
if we
so-
don't do the hallway, they don't know what they're digging back there because they don't have the hallway nailed down. So
Right.
it might be a hallway, it might be a room just for the electrical.
right,
They
Oh,
don't know what
gotcha.
earthwork done there. But the
right,
VOC they're ready to go on, but we don't know if it's gonna be smaller, bigger,
right,
anything,
Or we can do it.
or if we can do it.
right.
Well, we could at least do the shell of it, right?
Hope so.
Well,
If we stick with the plan as currently exists, then we could get that started Monday and we've got same four corners. It's just we build the whole building. and we just finish it. That seems to be-
Okay.
Or at some point along the way, there's a magic line close to the center of that building where if you wanted to stop it, come here there, you could, but the pad would still be prepped.
And ready to, okay. So I
Also-
think I feel better about the information.
also keep in mind, we're working on the permit side too. You don't know when they'll finally issue the permits. Keenan, I think our understanding was after we complete
Soon
the
as-
project at the preschool, correct?
Well, as soon as that contract is signed and brought to Gordon.
Mhm.
County,
Which will be tomorrow morning.
he said 2 days after that, he'll issue this.
Okay, all right,
So
good.
by the end of the week, they could have the permit.
Okay.
Is that in writing?
That's what Sean asked me, and unfortunately, no, it was a little, it was phone call.
Yes,
And you
we know the
forgot-
county
But the county's wrong.
every day.
Yeah.
Yes, they do.
So we'll work through that. So I'm just trying to figure out timing here, because like Andy said, we don't want to lose those earth contractors. Because if we delay them, they're gonna disappear another month or two.
That's
At least a
Hughes,
month.
right? That's still Edie Hughes. That's still Edie Hughes.
Huge excavation. We're changing it.
No, because
Girding.
Additional
Oh,
comments,
Gordon,
questions, needs?
I have one thing. I just, oh, no, thank you.
No, you're,
No,
not,
you-
you're in the work
you're good.
session.
I know I'm not a patron, I just thought that's what you
Sorry.
said. I just think that we all have our priorities of what we think should be the most important, and the actual most important is how we serve the most kids with the biggest variety of things and get a portion of it done. And so when we make these considerations and votes on how we do them, yes, that's the way we wanted it in the first place, but maybe it's changed a little bit. And if we juggle it around a little bit and take considerations for futurisms instead of just what we want right now, that we could better serve all the kids a little better than, because who knows when anybody's ever gonna approve another barn. It's a fact.
Guys, do you have a suggestion on what that looks like for what we should be considering?
Well, I mean, it's just like, are we gonna do the vacation building? Let's do the vacation building. Well, are we gonna do the cafeteria? Do we need a cafeteria? What happens with this building here? We need to put that all together in a big circle and decide the benefits of all of those things, because if we take one thing, it's gonna affect everything. And he said this multiple times tonight, is if you take away one thing, it's going to affect how the chain of everything else works. And so I think that this group really needs to have a handle on what that looks like. If we're gonna go full bore for a vocational building, then maybe we won't have a cafeteria. Maybe we'll have this asbestos in the building, and then there won't be any reason for renovating this building down, this current kitchen, because we aren't gonna do anything with it. It's going to still be the current kitchen with a minor culinary class in it. So, it's just, I think that we make a decision on how that all flows when you make the decision on what you want.
I think that's what we have from the bond committee already. I think we have that.
Mm-hmm.
We have HVAC, panel, power, then VOC, then kitchen. And what we need in order to continue moving forward is some,
Okay, I didn't hear the kitchen part of it.
sorry, priorities 1, 2, and 3, which are really just priority 1 is HVAC, panel, power upgrade, and then the VOC building, and then the kitchen. Was the suggestion from the bond committee.
It's the same order that's on my list.
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, well then, I guess I just made a big statement.
No,
for
you
nothing.
No, you didn't.
No, I think you're well stated.
Well, and a lot of it's modifying certain projects to get more for our money. We
That's
don't
right.
have to use that for a VOC. We could use it for other classrooms, but we have a building there that's dried in and it's an open space. So we're not technically saying we're gonna have a VOC there, but we'll have a classroom or we'll have an open space that we can use.
I think
For
that's a
kids.
great idea for.
But if it's not a VOC, then there's no cafeteria and there's no kitchen unless you don't have a VOC program.
But we don't have to do all the fancy stuff inside of it. We can have it like the shop that's out there. We have plugins, hook up the,
It can still be a VOC.
it can still be a VOC.
Sure.
Yeah, a bathroom. Yeah, can have a bathroom. But other than that, we don't need 2 separate classrooms, one for design, one for making products. We don't have to have the whole thing.
Yeah.
So therefore, what you're saying is we modify that, make allowances for it, and then possibly still go ahead and build everything out here.
Yes.
But I don't hear that from everybody in this room.
I think that's what we're in
Yeah,
agreement.
I think so.
Yeah.
Okay. Well,
Question?
if
I think
that's what it
maybe-
is, then I'm happy with it.
So your guys' next meeting is August 3rd at 7.
6.
Oh, 6. And yes, you can say what, yes.
I think since we're all here and we have CB here to get us some numbers. Anything left over should go to window replacement.
I'm sorry.
What?
so
To
what?
window
Window.
replacement.
Oh, windows, yes. As
I
many
understand it's a
classrooms as-
small if, but we do have contingency funds. I know most of the time those get spent, but if there's any,
Start that process.
Yeah.
Have you gotten any resolution on the grant you put into?
I haven't put in the ground. I've been kind of.
So you guys are asking that the select window replacement be moved above for alternate projects be moved up to above number 3.
I was looking at the April 12th.
Sorry, moved
Yeah.
at the April
April
12th.
12th.
So you're wanting to move 5 up above 3.
Yeah.
Rather than the metal building toilet repurpose.
mainly because we don't have an electrical heating system. And we have single pane glass
Right.
windows.
So
Yeah.
is there any modification on the boiler room and asbestos abatement? Because I see that on project number 4. Does that stay as is? Is
That's
it-
part of the kitchen cafeteria.
Yeah,
It's
that,
gotta be done for the kitchen.
right.
And I actually.
And it's
That's after the
minimal.
VOC.
Say that again.
When I looked at the abatement thing. So the original abatements report that the school district had all this stuff in it. The one that we did for the hazardous materials, there's very minimal amount of asbestos in there. It's all wallboard and glue and gypboard. There's no friable pipe stuff or anything.
Okay.
So it will be, the scope of it will be very small.
So are you saying that the 100,000 is probably pretty close or lower or higher?
The 100,000 is way more than it will be.
Oh, okay.
Okay,
Possibly. Just
Well,
use
yeah.
it as a
Yeah,
possibility.
Could be.
Okay?
Don't spend it
That's-
yet.
We're
Yeah,
not
yeah.
spending it yet. Okay. All right.
Oh, yeah, any extra funds?
Yeah.
The contingency.
Funds that'll-
So, okay, next meeting for you guys is August 3rd at 6 PM, and I'm gonna adjourn this. Let's take a break for a minute, and then let's kick off open session. Let's do 1940, please.
Will Scott and then still be here for me to ask a question?
Scott, are you able to stick around for the open session?
If you'd like me to, no problem.
Sounds like, well, it'll be patrons' comments. It's not patrons'
No
questions.
questions.
You can
Never mind.
come Wednesday night, but they won't be here.
Let's go ahead and take a
That's
recess,
usually on-
and I will talk with Terry for a second.
Okay.
order at 1940 with a flag salute, please. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Do we have any patron comments? Did I hear somebody online too?
It's online.
Oh, I-
Yes.
It's fine. Go ahead, Terry.
Okay. I have just a couple things, and this is my community hat. I just put that. I know that you guys are looking at a lot of things. The website, to be honest, the last couple of years. I went on the website today and I didn't, I might already know. There are things that are from 2017, 2018, 2019. On several different, like the news. It's 2017. So, I'm just saying. And the other thing is, I know that like Margie's got here, so. One of the problems I'm hearing parents, they all, other than the calendar, because that usually is, you know, has most of the information in it. Ask something else because they have no, in fact, they don't even, they don't. They just do. So my point is that if there's any priority set or any priority that's going towards the website, great things. We have new people, we've got new kids, we've got to brand ourselves, we've got to get that out there, we've got to get people. Okay. No, but other hats. Okay, okay.
So what I could say to that is we will advise the superintendent to work with his staff to make that a priority.
Perfect, thank you. My other thing is that we may have more information on this, and if I am wrong, please point out. I also scoured the website. Months ago, I was told. Can't see the video because they don't read them in the video, but we'll be able to see them in writing. They have not been in writing. They are not in writing, and I cannot find them. I looked under board books, I looked under everything. Now, my comment is that I'm not saying we don't care about the money. We care about all the other great things you guys do, the hiring, the firing. But what the maintenance report is, what's going on in the school. They want to know what the sports report is. We don't know. And another parent called and said, hey, can you tell me blah, blah, blah? If they could just read the report, they might know. So there, that's the issue.
So I don't have an answer, but I'm gonna look to the superintendent to make that a priority for communications to the community.
Thank you. And then as a booster hat, one more thing, who is in charge of the Kingfisher project? If someone can tell me that, that'd be great.
Will you follow?
I
up with
can
Eric
follow
on
up.
that?
Thank you.
Mhm.
We would like the booster club. We might like to be involved. Some of that. And also what I was gonna say during the bond meeting is going forward, seriously, trades are always great for their up and coming, especially, I'm sorry, college suck right now. And, okay, so you might like your, but I'm just saying, but trades are it, boys and girls, doesn't matter what they are. So that's my DOC point, and the booster club can also be very implemented as far as getting stuff for that.
What is the proper avenue.
Oh.
I'm sorry.
Go ahead.
I'm just curious what the proper avenue is for the booster club to purchase things. Like, do we have to come to you before? Do we have a new idea for a project? What is the appropriate?
We haven't had that conversation. We'll talk about that and then.
We can get that out.
Okay.
That's it.
Thank you. Mr. Rothenberger? Did I say that? Did I pronounce that name even remotely close? Okay, good.
Part of this. Say a couple things, because I've been in a few districts that have done some bonds. Definitely had. Shell of VOC. You get the shell of VOC, the kids in the class can go. I asked Mr. Gallagher, how much money are you saving if you get? If you get the shell, put the cafeteria in the kitchen, you're gonna get more saving on that contract. Ask them to look at, we just did a 500 addition to our PSC at Toledo. Total cost up, ended up being 65,000. Now we do our maintenance in-house. 500. So, gotta look at those out. That's pretty small. Storage. Questions?
Well, good news. We don't have any questions for athletics this evening because we are really focused on the bond side of things. But we look forward to your update next week during the the regular board meeting. Will you take down that comment though and just
I
make
got
that?
it.
Well, yeah, we're just put his operational comment.
I got it.
You got
It's
it?
on.
The kids.
No, sorry, with his statement around the shop and all that. Construction. The operational conversation.
Oh, yeah.
And all that.
Yeah,
Okay.
of course.
Yeah, I put it in the board. I forget.
Scared.
My notes.
Do we have any patron comments online?
I did not get any.
Okay. We don't have an approval of the agenda on here, but I'm gonna add that we do need to approve the agenda, because there's some possible modifications to the agenda. So does, anybody have any modifications they'd like to make to the agenda this evening?
Madam Chair, we're gonna have to remove B, 4B, approval of earthwork contract. We do not have that in hand.
Okay. I think that we need to add an approval of the BOC priority and asks. I would also like to have an action item placed on there to move to have more frequent meetings and then more
So we're
frequent-
adding the BOC recommendations. Is that what you're?
Yeah, I'd like to add an action item to for the BOC priority and recommendations so that we can get that voted on this evening for straight line and CB construction. And then I'd like to add a section to have more meetings.
Meetings concerning the board or
Just the board,
There's more meetings. for
open
the-
session meetings.
For
Like
bond or what?
So I want to have a conversation in action with this group to talk about, we need to be able to make more timely decisions. And so,
More work session?
nope, actually board meetings. To move them to every other week for a while. So that's what I want to I would like to put it on the agenda so we can make a motion and have a discussion on it at least.
We love to discuss.
All right. Is there an approval of the agenda?
I would love to make an approval or a motion to approve the agenda, adding the BOC priority recommendation, adding the discussion of more board meetings, and taking out the approval on the earth contract 4B.
I have a motion. Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Roll call vote. Robert? Yes. Deb?
Yes.
Christine? Yes.
Linda,
Linda?
yes.
Brian? Motion passes unanimously. All right. So action item A, is there a motion for the bond oversight committee's priority and asks?
May I ask if, I thought we were discussing the public works contract for the. police
Yeah, we're in
office.
order.
Oh, sorry, I put it, I
Oh,
put
did
it
you
on my
put the-
top of my list, sorry. Is there a motion for the approval of the contract with Public Works contract for preschool safety additions?
So that is changing it from, is that the?
No.
We have to make a motion first.
And then
Oh,
discuss.
sorry.
If you ask me, I'll present this.
Sorry. You want to present that?
Sure, that'd be great. Love to.
Just going by my notes. in
I know,
here.
I know. So what you see in front of you, written form, it's also should be on board books, is agreement for improvements. This is the contract for the Benton County Public Works to finish up the safety part, the crosswalks. And we have some handicapped access issues on, we do some grinding on the sidewalk for the preschool. And this is what's holding up our permitting process for the bond project. And so normally I don't take this to the board because it's only, they've guaranteed it's a max of $4,500, but because it's tied to the bond, I want to make sure that the board has a chance to review and approve this. If you approve it tonight, then I will go get it notarized in the morning and deliver it personally to the Public Works Department, and so they can start working on it. Also, this project is split between the county and also the school district. So we'll be doing part of the work, they'll be doing part of the work. And it's very precise work in terms of handicap requirements and ADA requirements. And so they also told us they would not charge us for any of the permits for this particular project. They would just go ahead and grant these permits, but they're doing the permitting because of liability. In case there's a challenge on the ADA requirements.
So may I just read the work to be performed by Benton County personnel will be billed to the developer and not to exceed 4,500.
That is us. Yes, not to exceed 4,500. That's.
I
in
just
this.
wanted that out there.
Yes.
So I'd like to make a motion to approve this agreement for improvements.
A second.
All right.
Yes.
Deb, any discussion?
No.
Linda, any discussion? Ryan? Robert? Yes, roll call vote. Robert? Linda?
Yes.
Christine, yes.
Yes.
Linda? Ryan?
Yes.
Unanimously approved. All right, next is the approval of the CV construction contract. Mr. Gallagher, can you give us an overview of what we're discussing?
Yes, Madam Chair. You'll see a memo here that covers the contract. I'm sorry I didn't get the contract to you sooner. But it says attached, you'll find an updated copy of the construction manager contract naming CB Construction. As the bond project continues moving forward, we're reviewing all contracts to make sure things are all in order. And we have board meeting evidence and minutes, and those also should be attached, of the approval of the construction manager contract dating February 11th, 2020. Okay, let's just continue here. So dating February 11th, 2021, but neither party has a signed copy. The attached contract simply updates the names associated with the contract since Alsea School District has a new superintendent and And CB Construction has a new construction manager on board also. The terms of the contract have not changed. This is a standard American Institute of Architects, AIA document commonly used in project management. So I recommend the board approve this amended contract. And again, from what we can tell and from our discussions with CB, nothing has changed in terms of the contents, and just the names have changed, and we need to get formalized signatures. That way our business manager is happy as she continues to make proper payments and expenditures.
Would you like a motion?
I do
Madam
need a
Chair?
motion. I do need a motion.
I would like to make a motion to approve the contract with CB Construction as presented.
All right, there's a motion. Is there a second?
I will.
Deb, any discussion?
No, ma'am.
Robert? Brian? Linda? I'll vote. We'll go Brian,
Yes.
Linda,
Yes.
Christine, yes. Robert?
Yes.
Linda, or Deb,
Yes.
passes unanimously.
It's not my kid.
And I even had coffee. This is ridiculous. All right. So next up, there's the agenda item to have more meetings. I would make a motion to adjust our board sessions to have a meeting every other week until the end of October. To be able to make more timely decisions. Board all around.
May I speak, ma'am?
We have to have a second. We have to have a motion in a second.
Oh. I'll make a second so I may speak.
All right. I'm just gonna go ahead and go for it.
So are you wanting to do this because of moving forward with the bond, and you think this is going to be more transparent for our community? Is that what this is about?
It's multifaceted from my opinion. I
Okay.
think that we need to have quicker decisions for the bond. I also think with the HR resets and other things happening in this school right now, we need more timely decisions for our superintendent to truly carry out what the board has been asking to carry out.
I'd like to hear from Mr. Gallagher about that. Do you think we really need to do that?
Oh, good question. I've worked for boards that have done both, once a month and twice a month. The twice a month has looked like just regular board meetings twice a month. It requires more preparation upon myself and my staff when you have that kind of frequency for board meetings. But in terms of the decision-making and the timeliness of those, especially as things are moving so fast with a lot of reset projects this year, anywhere from HR reset to budget stuff to bond stuff to, there's a lot of action coming. And I think it will certainly help with the length of the meetings. And I know that's been a concern. And the other twice a month format that I've seen work very nicely is where it's the first meeting of the month is a standing work session where you're discussing a lot of things that are happening. And then the second meeting is an action type meeting. The challenges with that structure is that it's hard to anticipate in terms of, and then you have to delay some of the decisions. So you have the discussion and it feels natural, just, okay, we're ready to make a decision, but we can't until 2 weeks prior or 2 weeks after. So there's positives and negatives to all. But the frequency and the speed that things are happening this year, it wouldn't be a bad thing to try. And we can certainly reevaluate at the end of October and say, is this working for us or is it not? I would be willing to do whatever the board would like.
Well, okay, so then my discussion with that is that have we not responded when we needed to have an emergency meeting to make decisions?
You guys have been great to respond when we needed something.
Done, I'm done. I got my answers.
Robert,
I get having to I think it makes it a lot simpler, especially when we have so much stuff to take care of here lately. There's times where it feels like we're just shooting through stuff and it's not even, we have discussions, but it's probably not the proper discussions because it's trying to get through a much bigger list. So I have no problem with the 2 meetings, especially here for a while.
Think October's long enough?
Well, I just wrote the dates.
Oh, I
down.
know, that's what I'm just trying to see where I test the waters here.
I might need reevaluation.
That's kind of what I was thinking.
Deb,
So I am okay with trying it through October and then reevaluating. And if it's working for us, great. If it's becoming too overwhelming, maybe reevaluate it then.
I wrote down there would be 3 additional dates besides our normal board meetings. So it would be our normal board meetings plus 3 additional dates. And that takes us to October 27th. And my opinion is that if there was no business to conduct, we would cancel. We wouldn't need to be here. And then also, we get those decisions in front of superintendent, and then we can move forward and we can reevaluate, obviously, that conversation at our normal board meeting on October 13th even.
Wait, what was that date you threw out there?
October 13th is a normal board session.
Right.
And so
Well, you said through what date?
through October 27th is the end of it. So that would you like me to read the total dates of what I calculated out?
Well, it
just
just
on the
didn't
calendar?
make sense to me to bring it back to the one on the 13th. Because I thought that's what you said.
Oh, sorry, I was saying we could have further discussion if it's really needed to extend one maybe. All right, any other discussion on that?
I'll just throw out there that this may be the end of my career because I don't think that I'll try it, but I think that it's too much.
You could always do Zoom. Oh, I was out of turn. So if it's too hard for you to come in,
You
do
ever
Zoom.
tried to do Zoom with kids in the house?
Now you tie them up around a tree pole. Oh, did I say that out loud? Sorry.
No. All right, let's go ahead and do a roll call vote. Robert,
Yes.
Yes.
Christine, yes. Linda,
No.
Ryan.
Yes.
Motion passes 4-1. Okay. I'm gonna try to get this one as correct as possible. I might need a little help. The next agenda item is to approve the bond oversight committee's priorities and asks as listed. Well, no. Right, as listed. Do I need to separate out the as listed for the bond oversight?
I'd be as specific as you could. be.
Okay, so I'm gonna do them.
Certainly use
Yeah.
this as your guide.
So the action is to, or sorry, the action item on the agenda is to approve the bond oversight committee's priorities and ask as listed. Priority 1 is the HVAC system panel upgrade, power upgrade. Priority 2 is the VOC building. Priority 3 is the kitchen cafeteria repurpose. The next.
Well, are there, Madam Chair, are there variations on any of those proposals? Like we talked about the generator electrical. Is that a variation?
Yes, so in that action, or sorry, in this agenda item, with each of these priorities, there will need to be a budget with and without modifications as per provided by Straight Line Architecture on page 3. that
right
lists
here.
all modifications.
And then go to quick meeting right there.
Is there a
No,
motion?
no, that one, this one.
No, okay.
So I was kind of making the list. May I speak?
Yeah, this one's a mess. It's fine.
Okay,
There's no
yeah.
action
So-
on the floor.
So I kind of put my list in as the power upgrade, the panel room, the HVAC, the VOC building, and then less or with the generator, and then less or with the VOC building as it is. And then less or with the panel room being what it was presented originally and or smaller to fit our budget. That's what I have.
I think we just said the exact same thing in totally different ways. So yes.
I
agreed.
think you guys are in
So,
agreement.
but I want to, Shirley, do you have all of that for the minutes? Because it's a little bit messy.
I was trying to clean myself.
No, you're totally good. Rephrasing is helpful in this situation. Fair motion.
I would like to make a motion to accept the recommendation from the BOC priority and recommendation list as stated with the power upgrade, the panel room, the HVAC, and the VOC building within the cafeteria with as presented and or less to fit our budget.
Second. Any discussion? Or Deb, geez, I'm getting them right.
No, ma'am.
Brian? Robert? All right, roll call vote. Robert,
Yes.
Deb,
Yes.
Christine, yes.
Yes.
Brian? That concludes our meeting. Our next meeting, regular session, is August 11th at 7 p.m. We are adjourned.
Thanks, everybody.
When is the second meeting? Oh, we already